Evening, chaps. What a treat it is to be chatting to you on a Wednesday evening. Now, the only reason why I'm decided to do a midweek video is because we've got a bit of a problem, and it's quite a serious problem. I think it's quite a serious problem, and I want to know what you think about this. And I want you to put your opinion down. Tell me what you think. Because I'm not quite sure whether to leave this alone or go for the jugular, and you'll see why. So back in, where are we now? We're February. I was going to put this on the channel, wasn't going to put this on the channel, but I actually thought, bollocks, I'm going to put this on the channel to see what happens. I'm not mentioning any names, I'm not mentioning company names. I'm just going to tell you the story. So if you haven't got a stiff gin and tonic or a beer, I suggest go and pour one, which I might have one somewhere, but anyway, I might take a breather halfway through, then get a beer. Right, let's get to it. So in February, do you remember, if you watched the weekly channel, we had a lovely, beautiful blue Polo for sale, and we put it needed a new gearbox, so we put, because of its age, its value and stuff, we put a second-hand gearbox. We asked this garage to put a second-hand gearbox in, which they absolutely said no problem at all. So they sourced a second-hand gearbox, and they fitted the gearbox, and we sold the car, handed it over to the customer, who lives just down the road, but he was buying it for his granddaughter, who lives up in Surrey. So we didn't hear anything from him, and then we get a call saying, Sam, my granddaughter is in Surrey, the car is in a garage, and the car has had completely dumped all its gearbox oil, and due to gearbox failure, and what are you going to do about it? And I said, well, let's first of all get the bloody thing sorted out. This is not meant to be the case, and we'll find out what's happened. Anyway, so I'm chatting with the garage up there, and they said the 5 of the 6 bolts where the gearbox was, replaced and fitted, 5 of the 6 bolts have come loose and are missing, and one of those bolts has hit the casing of the gearbox and caused a hole where all the oil's pissed out, and the gearbox I don't think is completely screwed, but it was moments away from getting completely screwed. So so I thought, right, okay, so what's got to happen here? So the garage said to me, right, we've got to take the gearbox out, and then we've got to obviously at some point refit it. That's going to be about 300 to 400, 350 or something like that. And then we're going to take the gearbox and we're going to try and weld the hole up. And we also got to send it off to a specialist to make sure the gearbox is okay, the bearings are right, it's lost all the oil and all that sort of stuff. It needs to be checked over. So I called up the garage that fitted it and said, right chaps, guess what's happened? The gearbox that you fitted, all the bolts have come out, and one of them has made a hole in the gearbox. And I want to make sure that you chaps are aware of this, because this shouldn't have happened. Did you put Loctite on the bolts? I don't. They started saying you shouldn't have to, and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, I'm no mechanic. I've never changed a gearbox before in my life. I do know if you don't want a bolt to come undone, you put something on it. But anyway, so the gearbox, so we said, right, I said to them, look, it's going to be to take out, put back in, 350, 400 quid, but there's an unknown about the gearbox, and it's got to go out. The car's going to be left at the garage. It's got to go to a specialist, taken apart and inspected. So so that's what happened. And then, long story short, the gearbox gets the bearings all needed to be looked at. Again, I'm no bloody mechanic, but the end bill ended up being £1,200, which we paid. The car got immediately sent back to the customer, and away she went. And I said, right, I'll take this up with the garage. We did give our garage an opportunity to go and, when we first chatted them, we said, look, car's in Surrey, you're in Devon. The car, the gearbox needs to go to a specialist and what have you. And they said, no, get it done up there. Fine. Now what's happening is, I have the bill here, is that the garage is refusing to pay for the bill. That's the situation. So all the bolts they put in have come out. It's caused all of this, and they're not wanting to. Well, they're not really cooperating with paying the bill. We called them over and we sat them just down there, and we had a chat about it. And I said, look, come in for a chat. We need to talk about this and see where we go from here. So they came and chatted. They kept saying things like, it wasn't our fault that the bolts came out and all that sort of stuff. Something's got wrapped around and each individual bolt and undone them all and spat them out. I mean, it doesn't really make any sense to me. But they said, look, as a gesture of goodwill, we will pay £550 towards the bill. And I said, well, what part of this bill do you feel that I am liable for? To which there was a bit of a silence. They stood by it and said, no, £550 we'll pay towards the bill. So meeting ended. I said, look, I need to go and have a think about this. They left. And then I suddenly thought, you know what? I shouldn't be having to pay the extra £700 to sort this out. This shouldn't have happened. Your cock up, and it really, it was, your cock up has caused this. And this is not what I am prepared to pay. So I wrote them an email, and I'll read you the email. And I thought, I'm going to write a firm but fair email, and I'll read it to you. Again, sorry if I'm boring you, but I'm just venting this, and it feels good to vent. So I'm going to read you the email, and I'll read you their response. So actually, you know what I'm going to do now? I'm going to get a bloody beer. Right, here we go. Dear, thanks for coming in today, and apologies we had to drop things in a dash. We had shit to do. Thanks also for your offer of £550 towards a repair. However, I need to be clear, the issue with the Polo wasn't an unlucky mechanical failure. It would be seen as negligence during the gearbox installation. 5 out of 6 bolts were not correctly secured, well, probably all 6 to be honest, and one was lucky and stayed in. And thread lock, such as Loctite, clearly wasn't used. This led to bolts falling out, one of which punctured the gearbox casing, causing a loss of oil and ultimately damaging the unit. The fact the car had driven 1,200 miles before the failure only reinforces how serious this is. This wasn't an instant fault, but something that developed due to a lack of care during fitting. It's also lucky this didn't escalate into something far worse, like a high-speed gearbox failure or a serious safety incident. I appreciate that. Had you known the cost up front, you would have travelled to Surrey to collect the vehicle and repair it yourselves. But at the point I contacted you, none of us knew the full extent of the damage, only that the gearbox had failed and needed urgent attention. We acted swiftly and reasonably to protect the customer and your reputation as well as our own. Recovering the car to Devon simply wasn't a practical option under the circumstances, and especially when you've got a car in one garage and a gearbox in another one in Surrey. Anyway, this repair wasn't optional. It was a direct and foreseeable consequence of your fitting. The £1,257 bill reflects the cost of removing, transporting, professionally repairing the gearbox, so the customer was not left stranded or without out of pocket. That's not just a cost we absorbed, nor should we. I've always respected the work you're doing and have continued using you guys during this period, as mistakes happen, which is fine, but taking proper responsibility when things go wrong is part of running a professional operation. Offering £550 doesn't come close to covering the cost or acknowledging the impact on our customer and our business. We've worked hard to keep this from becoming a bigger issue, and that effort deserves proper backing from you. We can claim the VAT back, which brings the total down to 1,047, and I'd like you to confirm you will cover this. I'm not the type that looks at taking things further, but it's important we resolve this fairly and properly. Regards, Sham. So, firm, fair, I'm not rolling over and, just going to get pissed on. So, some part of me thinks, well, they've contributed 550 quid, which actually shows that they're accepting some kind of responsibility. And a lot of you may say, look, just write it off, write it off, move on. And I kind of think that as well. But, I think that when you make cock-ups like this, you need to be made accountable for your mistakes. So I've got two or three options really. So their response. Are you ready for this one? Their response. So this came in today. So where's their response? Here we go. Without prejudice, it starts. Further to our recent communication, we are shocked at your request for payment for the full amount of an invoice, which he had no spelling, no grammar, knowledge, and no agreement to proceed with. We agreed by phone as a gesture, as a goodwill gesture, that we're willing to pay the £300 to £400, a figure that you provided, to cover the repairs to the car by the other garage. Naturally, we ask you to keep us informed as to the work and associated costs, etc., which you agreed as expected. We agreed to these figures as we believed at that price it would be as cost effective to follow that route as opposed to recovering the car, assessing it and repairing it ourselves, as the car and the customer resided in Surrey. We agreed to this course of action in an effort to provide an immediate solution to both you and the customer. That's very kind. As well as to ensure that the working relationship between you and ourselves will continue on the right footing in a reasonable and fair manner. When we undertook the initial repair work on this vehicle, which was fairly old and not of high value, all right, you specifically requested that second-hand parts were to be used as an economy repair. The fact that you specifically asked for an economy repair, I don't think we ever did actually ask for an economy repair. We just said, look, let's not put a brand new gearbox in, let's put a second-hand gearbox in. The fact that you specifically asked for an economy repair with a second-hand part, and that almost 20-year-old bolts that were holding the gearbox together had failed. It's not 20 years old, okay, but near there. Failed, not due to poor workmanship as alleged, cannot be substantiated. Now that the work has been carried out, we have no proof of the actual damage. You do, because we have images that he saw. State of the gearbox and necessity to carry out the repairs of which you have been billed. We are left only to assume that the other garage were correct in their procedure. Rebuilding a gearbox at the cost of 500 plus is not a usual or cost-effective option for a car of that age and value. A second-hand gearbox would have been purchased by the other garage for far less money, as was the case when you originally asked us to do the job. In terms of informal agreement of £300 to £400 for the alleged repair, and more importantly, keeping us informed during the process, you have failed in your duty. It is your responsibility to have informed us what was going on and how much it was going to cost. I am unaware of any business just producing to undertake work without informing the customer, in this case you, as to the costs, and then just presenting a bill at 3 to 4 times the expected figure. Please advise as to why you did not share that information with us. Your failure to do so denied us with the opportunity to agree/disagree or come to an alternative arrangement, etc. Unfortunately, convenience and your reputation does not come into the equation when you are not paying the bill. In effect, you are asking us to take full responsibility for the goods of repair, of which we had no idea as to how much the bill would be, and to which we did not agree. You point out that taking proper responsibility when things go wrong is part of a professional operation. We agree with that statement, and hence offer to pay the 300 to 400 was made immediately, and then another offer to increase it to 550. We believe that this amount more than covers our alleged responsibility and is in excess of the original quote you provided us, a gesture of our goodwill. As you admitted yourself, oh, this is interesting, we had been informed of the proposed £1,200. If we had been informed of the proposed £1,200, we would have collected the car ourselves and fixed it. They'd have driven, 4 or 5 hours, collected a car in bits, a gearbox in bits elsewhere, driven back 4 or 5 hours, and then they would have had to have got the gearbox looked at themselves. I mean, I don't quite get that. I don't quite how that was going to be feasible. And also, we have a responsibility for our customer to get it done sharpo, get them back on the road. This girl was without a car. She had a job, getting buses all over the place. We wanted her car to get back to her as soon as possible. Sorry, it's a bit dark. Hang on, let me see if I adjust the lighting. There we go. Oh, lovely. So you state that a professional operation will take proper responsibility to bring just to agree, as you admitted yourself even before the yes, but we have collected the car ourselves and fixed it. You denied us that opportunity. At some point during the work being undertaken by the garage, you should have informed us of the escalating costs and what the final bill might be. If you did not know and just gave the garage carte blanche to go ahead, seems unlikely or irresponsible at best, then it is wholly unreasonable to not inform us of this course of action and then to just pass that bill on to us, expecting that we should pay it without question, even though they caused this whole bloody problem in the first place. You state that a professional operation would take proper responsibility when things go wrong. Yeah, I do. You made a clear mistake by not informing us of the widely escalating costs. We would expect you to also take some responsibility for your mistake. According to the Unfair Contract Terms Act of 1977, Section 13, you're in breach of an informal agreement, which actually I think you'll find that's just consumer to business, not business to business, which was verbally agreed and is what we're expecting to pay. No further information or update was received beyond those figures. There is also the principle of mitigation of loss, which is relevant here. A party seeking to recover costs must take responsible steps to minimise their losses. Well, I tell you what, someone could quite easily have been killed here. Quite easily have been killed. I think they're bloody lucky nothing like that happened. By failing to inform us of the escalating costs and denying us the opportunity to perform the repair ourselves, which you state would have been more cost effective, you have failed in your duty to mitigate your loss. While an estimate is not a fixed price, a substantial deviation from it without prior notification and consent from us is unreasonable. The fact that the car was already at the other garage does not excuse the lack of communication on your part regarding the significant costs increase. As for the invoice from the other garage, it contains no itemised breakdown of individual works carried out. Yes, it does. Which they've seen. And their associated costs. So we are left to assume that everything is fair and correct. We are unable to determine what the underlying condition was that caused the actual breakdown. after 5 months of your customer using the vehicle that you sold them. When did we sell it to them? The 3 months and 2 weeks ago. These chaps need to get their bloody facts right. 5 months to sold it. Yes, you have offered to reduce the bill by being able to claim the VAT from HMRC. I absolutely did. That in effect means that you are not taking any financial responsibility for the errors you made and for the errors that I made. So I've made errors here. I've made errors. I'm liable for what's happened. Basically what they're saying. Any financial responsibility for the errors you have made and are expecting all costs to be borne by us. So much for fairness. We're now withholding our goodwill gesture of £550 until a reasonable settlement is reached, as holding us, company name, fully liable for the alleged breakdown of our repair, which cannot be verified, and the unexpected and hugely expensive and cost to fix it is wholly unreasonable and unfair. Thanks and regards. Oh, hang on. So there you have it. So a lot of it from them is like, why didn't you tell us it was going to cost that much? Well, to be honest, it had to be, the car was in one place, the gearbox is another, nothing could get recovered. It didn't make sense to start picking up bits of cars from around the country and then pulling them back down to Devon when they're not gearbox specialists at all. And I think I probably have the right, as it was in their 3 months, to have it done by a gearbox specialist as a dealer. So seeing as they cocked up on that, I was sort of, no, they fix it, you pay the bill. And it's not an unfair bill, I don't think. Yeah, 1,257 quid. Take gearboxes out, completely dismantle. It's got a new clutch plate in it as well, because there was a gearbox oil in the clutch bell housing. So they had to put a new clutch kit in. So I don't think it's a massively expensive bill for what was actually done. So there we have it. So we've got the issue, my initial email to them, their response, and I haven't done anything yet. So I thought I would vent on a Wednesday night and let you know what's happened. So this morning we were supposed to have the Crosslander that sold, that you probably saw in the weekly. These chaps were going to do the wet belt on it this morning, and they picked it up, I think last night or something, yesterday. Picked it up yesterday. And I got a message, and the Crosslander is being handed over tomorrow morning. And so I got a message this morning after I sent my email yesterday, and they said, we've just dropped the Crossland back. This is about 8 o'clock in the morning. We've just dropped the Crossland back. We're not doing the wet belt for you. We're not doing any more work until we sort this out. And I was like, okay, right, now you're disrupting the business. But I thought, all right, sod you, I'll get the wet belt done elsewhere. So this morning, trying to get the wet belt done, calling up people, managed to get it in. Of course, we had MOTs booked around the wet belt being done, having come back to us today. So everything was meant to be like clockwork, but then everything just went up in the air, and it's like, right, MOT now, wet belt now, wet belt next, and then we'll do its final valet and all that sort of stuff. And so everything was a bit up in the air with that, but we managed to sort it out. But again, disrupting, saying I'm not going to touch it now. I mean, grow up. So I was a bit miffed about that. I mean, these are young people, and I don't think they understand business very well, and I don't think they understand how important it is to have good relationships in business. And we have cocked up. We have made mistakes, and we have just gone, let's just sort it out. It's our problem. It's done. No matter what the cost is, let's get it done. So maybe I'm just being maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe they're right, maybe they're wrong. But at the end of the day, this shouldn't happen if they'd fitted that gearbox properly. And I don't see why I should have to bloody pay for it. Anyway, that's the rant. Chaps, sorry if I've bored you, but a midweek video. Lovely to see you. But we'll catch you chaps back at the weekend because we've got a fun weekly video coming out, I think. So we'll see you soon. Laters. Let me know what you think. Comments. I want to know what you all think of this shit. All right. Take care. Laters.